Captain Dongwu Li stood on the bridge of Seoul's Pride, looking at the planet below. From space it looked almost normal, green and blue with white clouds swirling around it. But the sensors told a different story. Deep inside, the planet was dying. "Show me the council fleets," he told his navigation officer. The main screen changed. Hundreds of alien ships were moving away from the planet, getting smaller and smaller. They looked like stars going out one by one. And our ships? The screen changed again. 12 human vessels, tiny compared to the alien fleet, were moving toward the dying planet. It looked like a school of small fish swimming toward a shark. On the planet's surface, the colonists could see both fleets on their emergency screens. One fleet getting smaller as it ran away. One fleet getting bigger as it came to help. Dr. So-Young Kim's voice came through the communication system. "I'm sending the technical data to all ships now. Everyone needs to understand what we're asking people to do." Dongwu looked at the information on his screen. It was worse than he thought. So-Young wanted to modify mining drones with quantum stabilizers. Then teams of people would pilot these drones deep into the planet, through the hot rock and metal all the way down to the core. The numbers were terrible. The temperature would reach 50,000 degrees. The pressure would be crushing. Any normal person would die in seconds. Even with the best heat suits, no one could survive more than a few minutes. But many humans had metal parts in their bodies from the old wars. These cybernetic implants might give them a few extra minutes. Maybe long enough to place the stabilizers and save the planet. Maybe engineer Haewon Choi was the first to volunteer. She worked on Seoul's Pride, fixing the ship's engines. She was small and quiet, but everyone knew she was brilliant. Her grandmother had told her stories about the Seoul siege, when the city burned for 3 days, but the people never gave up. "I can modify the mining drones," she said over the communication system. "My cybernetic hands can work in higher temperatures than normal ones. I can do this." Captain Lee looked at her through the bridge screen. "Haewon, you understand what you're volunteering for?" She nodded. "My grandmother walked through fire to save her family. I can do it to save 2 million people." One by one, other voices joined the communication channel. Sergeant Jin Ho Nam from the Marine transport ship. "I'll organize ground teams to help evacuate civilians while the core mission runs. Pilot Yoo-Jin Song from her fighter. I'll lead atmospheric runs to get people off the surface if the planet starts breaking apart. Engineer Tae-wook Park from the mining ship. I've got cybernetic lungs from the asteroid wars. I can handle the pressure better than most. Dr. Kyung-ho Bae from the medical ship. I'll monitor vital signs and keep the core teams alive as long as possible." Soon, 37 people had volunteered for the core mission. They all knew they were volunteering to die. But they also knew that 2,300,000 people were counting on them. The mining drones were small ships, built to dig through asteroids. Haewon and her team worked for 6 hours straight, adding heat shields, pressure resistance, and quantum stabilizers. The drones looked strange when they were finished, covered in extra armor and cooling systems. "They won't be pretty," Haewon said, "but they might get us deep enough." Dr. So-Young Kim sent new data to all the ships. "I've found 7 critical points in the planet's core where we need to place stabilizers. The deepest one is nearly at the center of the planet. The heat there will be extreme." Captain Lee studied the mission plan. It was insane. The teams would have to fly through the planet's crust, through melting rock, through liquid metal, down to where the core was tearing itself apart. Each team would place one stabilizer, then try to get back out. None of them would make it back. "Volunteers for the deep core run?" he asked. 7 hands went up immediately. The alien fleets were now far enough away to be safe from any explosion. Through long-range communications, they were watching what the humans were doing. The Valorans calculated that human success probability was 0.001%. The Nathari predicted total human extinction within the next day. The Kronoth, who thought in terms of millions of years, saw this as an interesting but ultimately meaningless event. But the colonists on the planet saw something different. They saw the human ships getting closer. They saw hope. The first modified drone launched from Seoul's Pride with engineer Haewon at the controls. The small ship entered the planet's atmosphere, then dove straight down through solid rock. The hull began to glow red from the heat before she was even a kilometer deep. "Temperature rising," Haewon reported. Her voice was calm. "Heat shields holding. Descending to first stabilization point." 5 other drones followed her down. Each one carried a person who knew they would not come back up. On the surface, Sergeant Nam's teams were evacuating civilians to the safest areas they could find. The ground was starting to shake as the planet's core became more unstable. "How long do we have?" Nam asked Dr. Kim. "If the core teams succeed, the planet stabilizes. If they fail, we have maybe 6 hours before the whole thing explodes." Pilot Song was flying rescue missions through the atmosphere, pulling people off dangerous areas where the ground was cracking. Her fighter was fast, but there were so many people to save. Deep underground, HFY reached the first stabilization point. The temperature was now over 20,000 degrees. Her heat suit was failing, and she could feel her cybernetic implants getting hot enough to burn her skin. "First stabilizer in position," she reported. Her voice was getting weak. "Installing now." The quantum stabilizer was a small device about the size of her hand, but it had taken Earth's best scientists 5 years to build just one. Now they needed 7 of them placed perfectly or nothing would work. "Stabilizer online," HFY said. "Core pressure dropping in this sector." The second team reached their point. Then the third. One by one, the stabilizers activated. The planet's core readings showed improvement, but it was not enough. They needed all 7 stabilizers working together. The fourth team went silent. The fifth team's drone was crushed by pressure before reaching their target. The sixth team made it to their point but died before they could activate their stabilizer. That left the deepest point. The most dangerous one, the one closest to the center of the dying planet. Engineer Jong-soo Kim volunteered for the final run. He was older than the others, with more cybernetic parts from his years working in deep space mining. His drone was the most heavily armored, but everyone knew it would not be enough. "This is Kim," he said as his drone began the descent, starting deep core run. "If I don't make it back, tell my daughter I was proud to be human." His drone disappeared into the planet's molten heart, carrying the last hope for over 2 million lives. Above, the human fleet waited. On the surface, people looked up at the sky, watching for any sign of what was happening in the deep places of their world. And far away, safe in space, the alien council fleets watched their sensors, unable to believe what they were seeing. The impossible was starting to happen. Commander Taemin Park stood in the great meeting hall of the Galactic Council Station. The hall was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Giant windows showed the stars outside, and in the distance, a dying planet spun slowly in space. The planet was called Kepler 442b. It looked peaceful from here, but Taemin knew better. Deep inside the planet, something terrible was happening. The core was breaking apart. Soon the whole planet would explode. When it did, it would destroy the star too. The explosion would be so big that it might hurt other star systems nearby. 2,300,000 people lived on that planet. Most of them were humans who had come to build a new home. There were also some aliens who had fled from wars in other parts of the galaxy. Now they were all trapped. The council members floated and stood around the great table. They did not look like humans at all. The Valorans looked like living glass, tall and clear, with light moving inside them. When they spoke, their voices sounded like music made from crystal. The Nathari had no solid bodies at all. They were like clouds of colored gas that changed shape when they moved. The Kronoth looked like walking rocks, slow and ancient, with deep voices that rumbled like earthquakes. Taemin had metal parts in his body from the old resource wars on Earth. The wars had been terrible, but they taught humans how to survive impossible things. The metal parts helped him think faster and made him stronger. Right now, he wished they could make him more patient too. "The situation is clear," said the lead Valoran. Its voice rang like bells. "The planet cannot be saved. Our calculations show 0 possibility of success. We must evacuate our people immediately." Dr. So-Young Kim stepped forward. She was the only human scientist the council allowed in their meetings. Her hands shook a little as she held her datapad. "Wait, I have been studying the planet's geology. There might be a way to fix this." The Nathari representative swirled, changing from blue to dark purple. "Dr. Kim, your species is still learning basic space science. This problem is beyond your understanding." "The core is breaking because of quantum resonance," So-Young said, trying to keep her voice steady. "If we could place stabilizers at the right points deep inside the planet, we could stop the chain reaction." The Kronoth elder made a sound like rocks grinding together. Even if this were possible, no known technology could survive the journey to the planet's core. The heat and pressure would destroy any machine instantly. Taemin felt anger building inside him. "What about the people down there? Are you just going to leave them to die? The Valoran turned toward him. Light pulsed inside its crystal body. Commander Park, you must understand. Your species joined the Council only 50 years ago. You are still on probation. You have limited say in these matters, limited say. Taemin's voice got louder. We're talking about over 2 million lives. And if we lose ships trying to save them, we might lose millions more, the Nathari said, its gas body turning red. Logic demands that we protect the many over the few. Captain Dong Wu Li had been quiet until now. He commanded the human research ship Soul's Pride, one of 12 human vessels near the dying planet. He was older than Taemin, with gray hair and scars on his face from the colony rebellions. So that's it? You just run away? The council members looked at each other. The Valorans communicated by flashing lights inside their bodies. The Nathari swirled together like a small storm. The Kronoth stood perfectly still, which was how they thought about hard problems. Finally, the lead Valoran spoke. The Galactic Council has made its decision. All Council fleets will retreat to minimum safe distance. The planet is declared a loss. We cannot risk our advanced civilizations for a probationary species and their refugees. Taemin stared at them. You're abandoning them. We are making the logical choice, the Valoran replied. Perhaps this will teach humanity about the dangers of expanding too quickly into dangerous space. The Nathari added, your species always acts on emotion instead of reason. This is why you are not ready for full membership. Our fleets will begin moving to safe distance immediately, the Kronoth rumbled. We suggest your small fleet does the same. So Young looked at her datapad again. Her hands were shaking more now. I'm telling you there might be a way to save them. The quantum resonance can be stopped if someone can get deep enough into the planet. Even if that were true, the Valoran said, no one could survive such a journey. The temperature near the core reaches 50,000 degrees. The pressure would crush any known material. But what if? So Young started to say. The Nathari cut her off. Dr. Kim, your optimism is admirable but foolish. We have calculated every possibility. There is no solution. The Great Hall fell silent. Through the windows, Taemin could see the Council fleet starting to move. Hundreds of ships, each one bigger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. They were all turning away from the dying planet. The lead Valoran made a final announcement. The Council session is closed. All species will retreat to safe distance immediately. That is our final decision. As the alien representatives left the hall, Taemin stood with So Young and Dong Wu. They watched through the windows as the massive alien fleets began their retreat. The ships moved slowly but steadily away from the planet where over 2 million people waited for help that would never come. They're really leaving, So Young whispered. Dong Wu's jaw was tight with anger. Cowards. All of them. Taemin activated his communication device. The signal reached the other human ships spread around the dying planet. This is Commander Park. The Council has abandoned the colonists. We're on our own. Captain Boram Seo's voice came back from her transport ship. What are your orders, Commander? Taemin looked at the retreating alien fleets, then at the dying planet where millions of people waited for help. The metal parts in his brain calculated the odds automatically. They were terrible. Impossible even. But humans had faced impossible odds before. Signal Earth Command, he said. Tell them the Council walked away. Ask them what we should do. The reply from Earth came back faster than expected. It was simple and clear. Save them all or die trying. That's what humans do. So Young looked up from her datapad with tears in her eyes. Taemin, I think I know how to do it. But it's going to cost everything. Outside the windows, the last of the Council ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the humans alone with a dying world and over 2 million lives hanging in the balance. Engineer Jong-Soo Kim felt his drone shake as it moved deeper into the planet. Outside his small ship, liquid rock flowed like water. The temperature readings on his screen kept climbing. 30,000 degrees, 40,000, 45,000. His heat suit was already failing. The cooling systems were working as hard as they could, but it was not enough. He could feel the metal parts in his arms and chest getting hot. Soon they would start burning him from the inside. Core Team 7 report status, came Captain Lee's voice from far above. Still descending, Kim said. His voice was getting rough. The hot air was burning his throat even through his breathing mask. Depth now 1,500 kilometers. Temperature approaching 50,000 degrees. On the surface, Dr. Mi-Kyung-yoon was tracking all the core teams from her mobile laboratory. She was a quantum physicist, one of the smartest humans alive. But right now, all her knowledge could not help the people dying deep inside the planet. Jong-soo's drone is holding together better than we expected, she reported to the fleet. But his life signs are getting weak. Captain Boram Seo was flying her transport ship through the planet's upper atmosphere, evacuating colonists from areas where the ground was starting to crack open. Through her ship's windows, she could see other human vessels doing the same thing. They looked like tiny insects trying to save everyone they could before the world ended. "How many people have we gotten off the dangerous areas?" she asked her crew. "About 50,000 so far," replied Lieutenant Woo Jin-han from the communication station. "But there are still over 2 million down there." Deep underground, the first 6 stabilizers were working. The planet's core was becoming more stable in those areas. But without the 7th stabilizer, the chain reaction would continue. Everything they had done would be for nothing. Jong-soo's drone reached the deepest point nearly at the center of the planet. The pressure here was incredible. It felt like the whole world was trying to crush his small ship. The quantum fracture was right in front of him, a crack in space itself that was tearing the planet apart. "I can see it," he said into his radio. His voice was very weak now. "The fracture? It's beautiful. Like watching a star being born. But it's growing. We don't have much time." His cybernetic hands were burning him as he tried to control the drone. The metal parts that had once saved his life in the mining accidents were now cooking him alive. But they were also the only reason he was still conscious. "Installing the 7th stabilizer now," he said. Above, the human fleet waited. Every person on every ship was listening to Jong-soo's weak voice coming from the center of a dying world. They could not help him. All they could do was hope. The alien council fleets were also listening. They had long-range sensors pointed at the planet, watching something that their computers said was impossible. The Valorans ran their calculations over and over, but the numbers did not make sense. The Nithari tried to understand how individual minds could choose certain death for uncertain hope. The Kronoth, ancient and patient, saw something they had never seen before in millions of years. "Stabilizer. In position," Jong-soo whispered. His words were hard to understand. "Quantum field. Aligning. Come on, you beautiful thing. Work." The 7th stabilizer came online. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the planet's core readings began to change. The quantum fracture started to close. The chain reaction that would have destroyed the world began to slow down. "It's working," Dr. Yoon shouted from the surface. "All 7 stabilizers are synchronized. The core is stabilizing." But Jong-soo was not finished. The stabilizer needed to be calibrated perfectly or it would fail in a few hours. He had to stay and make sure it kept working. He had to stay in the center of a world that was trying to kill him. "Jong-soo, get out of there," Captain Lee's voice came through the radio. "The stabilizer is working. You can leave now." "No," Jong-soo said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Need to calibrate. Make sure it holds." "Give me 10 more minutes." Everyone knew he did not have 10 more minutes. The heat had already burned through most of his heat suit. His cybernetic parts were glowing red hot, but he stayed at his position, making tiny adjustments to keep the stabilizer working perfectly. "Jong-soo, please," came his daughter's voice from one of the evacuation ships. She was a pilot, helping to move people to safety. "Come back to us." "Can't, little star," he said, using his old nickname for her. "But I can give you all a world to live on. That's good enough for me." His life signs went flat, but the stabilizer kept working. The planet's core began to cool. The quantum fracture sealed shut. The chain reaction stopped completely. Deep underground, in the center of a world, a small device continued to work perfectly, calibrated by a man who gave his life to save over 2 million people. On the surface, the ground stopped shaking. The cracks stopped growing. The emergency sirens that had been wailing for days finally went quiet. "All teams, this is Dr. Yoon," came the announcement to every ship and every person on the planet. "Core stabilization complete. The planet is safe." "Repeat, the planet is safe." A cheer went up from the human fleet. On the surface, people cried and hugged each other. Children who had been too scared to sleep finally closed their eyes. But in the fleet, there was also sadness. 37 people had gone into the planet's core. None of them came back. They had given their lives to save a world. Captain Dongwu Li stood on his bridge looking at the planet below. It looked the same as before, green and blue and peaceful, but now it would stay that way for millions of years, protected by the stabilizers that brave people had died to install. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we're getting a signal from the council fleets." Li was not surprised. The aliens would want to know how humans had done the impossible. "Put them through," he said. The lead Valoran appeared on the screen. Its crystal body was flashing with lights, which meant it was very confused or very impressed. "Captain Li," the alien said, "our sensors show that your mission was successful. We do not understand how this is possible." "It's possible because we tried," Li replied. "That's what humans do. We try even when the odds are against us. But the mathematics clearly showed—" "The mathematics don't include hope," Li said, "or love, or the fact that some things are worth dying for." The Valoran was quiet for a long time. Finally it said, "We are returning to the planet to study what you have accomplished and to offer assistance with the remaining evacuation efforts. We don't need your help now," Li said. "We saved our people ourselves." "Yes," the Valoran said softly. "We are beginning to understand that this is what makes your species unique." The communication ended. Li looked out at the stars where the council fleets were already turning around, coming back to see what humans had accomplished in the face of certain death. Below, on the surface of the saved world, people were building monuments to the 37 heroes who had died in the planet's core. The monuments would stand for thousands of years, telling the story of the day humans walked into fire to save the lives of strangers. And deep underground, 7 quantum stabilizers hummed quietly, keeping a whole world safe for generations yet to come. 3 days had passed since the core stabilization. The planet was safe, but there was still work to do. Over 2 million people needed to be moved to safer parts of the world, while the damaged areas were repaired. Commander Jae-sung stood in the hangar of the heavy transport ship New Seoul. He was looking at his modified rescue ship, a tough vessel built to survive in space storms and asteroid fields. Now it had extra heat shields and radiation barriers welded to its hull. It looked strange, like a normal ship wearing too much armor. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Yoon-Hae Park. She was the fleet's chief medical officer, and she had been studying what happened to the core teams. "We know the stabilizers are working, but there might be people still alive in the deep rescue pods." During the emergency, some colonists had taken shelter in deep underground bunkers. These bunkers were built to protect people from earthquakes and storms. But when the planet's core started breaking apart, some of the bunkers had been cut off from the surface. The people inside had been trapped for 4 days now. The bunkers were deep, but not as deep as the core. However, they were still far underground in areas where the heat and pressure were dangerous. Normal rescue ships could not reach them. "I've been flying rescue missions for 20 years, Oh said. "I'm not going to stop now because it's dangerous." Captain Sun-hee Kim, who was coordinating the rescue operations, looked worried. "Jae-sung, the conditions down there are still very bad. The temperature is over 5,000 degrees in some places. The pressure could crush your ship." "Then we better work fast," Oh replied. He had volunteered for the deep rescue mission because his ship was the toughest in the fleet, and because he had the most experience flying in dangerous conditions. During the colony wars, he had flown rescue missions through poison gas clouds and radioactive storms. He had pulled people out of exploding space stations and crashing ships. But this was different. This time, he would be flying through solid rock that was still hot from the planet's core crisis. Dr. Park checked her medical scanner. "We're detecting life signs from 17 different bunkers. That's about 800 people total, including 60 children." Oh nodded. "How long can they survive down there?" "Their air will run out in about 12 hours. Their food is already gone. Then we better get started." The rescue mission began with O's ship diving straight down through the planet's crust. The rock was still soft and hot from the core crisis. His ship pushed through it like flying through thick soup. "Hull temperature rising," reported his co-pilot, engineer Hyojin Lee. "Heat shields holding, but barely." "Life support?" "Still good." "The new cooling systems are working." O's ship had been modified with the best technology the human fleet could provide, but everyone knew it might not be enough. The deep bunkers were in the most damaged part of the planet's underground, where the rock was still cooling and unstable. Above, the returning council fleets watched through their sensors. The alien ships had come back to study how humans had saved the planet, but now they were watching another impossible rescue mission. The lead Valoran contacted Captain Kim. "We are detecting the human ship descending into the planet again. What is the purpose of this mission?" "Rescue," Kim replied simply. "There are people trapped underground. Our calculations show that the underground conditions are still extremely dangerous." "Why are you risking more lives?" "Because those people are counting on us." The Valoran was quiet for a moment. "We do not understand your species' tendency to risk the certain for the uncertain." "Then you've never had people counting on you," Kim said. Deep underground, O's ship reached the first bunker. The underground chamber was damaged, with cracks in the walls and water leaking through the ceiling, but the people inside were alive. "This is Commander O," he said over his ship's loudspeaker. "We're here to get you out." The bunker door was stuck. The heat and pressure had warped the metal. O had to use his ship's cutting tools to slice through the thick steel. It took 30 minutes of careful work, while the temperature outside climbed higher and higher. "Got it," he said as the door finally opened. "Everyone move quickly. We can only make one trip." 43 people ran from the bunker to his ship. They moved fast even though they were weak from hunger and fear. They knew this might be their only chance. "Next bunker," O said as his ship climbed back through the rock. The second bunker was deeper and in worse condition. The rescue took an hour. O's ship was getting damaged from the heat and pressure, but it was still flying. The third bunker was the worst. It was so deep that O's ship barely made it through the crushing pressure. The people inside had been trapped for 5 days, and several of them were badly hurt. "Medical team, I'm going to need help," O reported as he brought the injured people up. Dr. Park was waiting with her medical ship. "How bad is it?" "Bad, but they're alive." One by one, O rescued people from the deep bunkers. Each trip was more dangerous than the last. His ship was breaking down from the extreme conditions, and the underground areas were becoming more unstable. After the 15th rescue, Engineer Lee looked at the ship's condition reports. "Jae-sung, we're losing hull integrity. The heat shields are almost gone. One more deep dive might be all we can handle." O looked at his navigation display. 2 bunkers left. One was fairly shallow and would be an easy rescue. The other was the deepest bunker of all, nearly as far down as some of the core stabilization points. "How many people in the deep bunker?" he asked. 37, came the reply from Dr. Park, "including 12 children." O made his decision. "We go for the deep one first. If the ship breaks down, at least we save the most people we can." The deepest bunker was in the most dangerous part of the planet's underground. The rock there was still glowing hot and the pressure was enormous. O's ship groaned and creaked as it descended, pushed beyond what it was built to handle. "Hull breach in Section 4, Lee reported. "We're losing atmosphere. Can you seal it?" "Working on it. Got it. But it won't hold for long." The ship reached the deep bunker. O could see it through his external cameras, a small metal chamber buried in red-hot rock. The people inside had been trapped the longest and would be in the worst condition. "This is Commander O," he said over the loudspeaker. "We're here to get you out, but we need to work very fast." The bunker door was not just stuck, it was partially melted. O had to use emergency cutting charges to blast it open. The explosion shook his already damaged ship. "Everyone out now," he shouted. 37 people ran from the bunker. Some of them had to carry others who were too weak to walk. The 12 children were scared but brave, holding onto the adults as they moved to O's ship. "That's everyone," Lee said. "Let's get out of here." But as the ship started to climb, something went wrong. The engine made a terrible grinding noise, then stopped working. "Engine failure," Lee reported. "We're stuck." O looked at his instruments. They were nearly 2 kilometers underground in rock hot enough to melt steel. His ship was badly damaged, losing air, and now it could not fly. "Emergency power to life support," he said. "How long can we last?" "Maybe 2 hours with this many people." O activated his communication system. "Fleet Command, this is O. We've rescued everyone from the deep bunker, but our ship is disabled. We need immediate assistance." Captain Kim's voice came back immediately. "Jae-sung, we're sending down every rescue ship we have. No good. The conditions down here will destroy any normal ship. You need something specially modified like mine was." "How long do you need?" O looked at his displays. The ship was dying around them, but the people from the bunker were safe inside, breathing clean air for the first time in days. The children were already looking better. "I don't know if we can last long enough for a rescue. Ship to be built and sent down," he said honestly. "But then, engineer, Lee found something in the ship's emergency supplies. Jae-sung, look at this. Emergency thruster pods. They're designed for exactly this kind of situation. The thruster pods were small rocket engines that could be attached to a disabled ship to push it to safety. They were not very powerful, but they might be enough to get the ship moving upward through the soft rock. Will they work in these conditions? Oh asked. Only one way to find out. It took 30 minutes to attach the emergency thrusters to the outside of the ship. By then, the hull was starting to glow red from the heat. The air inside was getting thin despite the life support systems working as hard as they could. Everyone hold on, O announced. This might be rough. He fired the emergency thrusters. The ship shook violently, then slowly began to move upward through the rock. It was not fast, but it was movement. It's working, Lee shouted. Slowly, carefully, the damaged ship climbed toward the surface. Behind them, the deep bunker collapsed completely, crushed by the weight of the planet above it. 2 hours later, O's ship broke through to the surface. The hull was glowing hot and full of holes, but everyone inside was alive. That's the last of them. O reported to the fleet. All bunkers evacuated. All people accounted for. As his ship limped to the landing area, O could see the council fleets in orbit above. The aliens were still watching, still trying to understand how humans kept doing impossible things. He did not care what they thought. 1 week after the planet was saved, Admiral Kyung-soo Bae stood on the observation deck of his flagship, Earth's Promise. Through the huge windows, he could see the planet below. It looked peaceful and normal with blue oceans and green land. It was hard to believe that just days ago it had been dying. The evacuation was almost complete. Most of the colonists had been moved to safer areas while the damaged parts of the world were being repaired. The human fleet had worked day and night to help everyone, and now over 2 million people were safe. But something unexpected was happening. The council fleets had returned, not to help with the evacuation, but to demand answers. Sir, said Communications Officer Min-Soo Kang, the council representatives are requesting another meeting. They want to know how we accomplished what their computers said was impossible. Admiral Bae was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had commanded fleets during the colony wars and the resource conflicts. He had seen humans do incredible things before, but even he was amazed by what had happened here. Let them come, he said, but this time we meet on our ship. An hour later, the alien representatives arrived on Earth's Promise. The Valorans floated in their clear crystal bodies. The Nathari swirled as clouds of colored gas. The Kroneth walked slowly on their rock-like legs. They all seemed confused and uncomfortable. Dr. Hee-Jin Lim, the fleet's expert on alien psychology, had been studying their behavior. They're frightened, she told Admiral Bae. Not of us, but of what we represent. We've done something that their logic says should be impossible. The meeting took place in the ship's main conference room. It was a simple space, nothing like the Grand Council chambers. The walls were painted with pictures of Earth, and there were real plants growing in containers. It looked very human. The lead Valoran spoke first. Its voice sounded like crystal bells, but there was something different about it now. Admiral Bae, we must understand. Our computers calculated the probability of your success at less than 1 in 1,000. How did you accomplish what we believed was impossible? Admiral Bae looked around the table at his people. Dr. So-Young Kim, who had figured out how to save the planet. Captain Dong-Woo Lee, who had led the suicide mission into the core. Commander Taemin Park, who had refused to abandon the colonists. All of them looked tired but proud. We didn't calculate the odds, Bae said simply. We just did what needed to be done. The Nathari representative swirled, changing from blue to purple. But this is not logical. You risked your entire species for people who were already doomed. They weren't doomed until we gave up on them, Dr. Kim said. And we don't give up. The Kroneth elder made a sound like rocks grinding together. In our millions of years of existence, we have never seen a species willing to sacrifice the certain for the uncertain. It is inefficient. Captain Lee smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Efficiency isn't everything. Sometimes you have to do what's right, even when it's hard. The Valoran's light pulsed faster. We are prepared to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, with complete voting rights and access to all our technology. Your species has proven itself capable of unique problem-solving. The room fell silent. Full council membership was something humans had wanted for 50 years. It would give them access to advanced alien technology, protection from hostile species, and a voice in galactic politics. But Admiral Bay shook his head. "We don't need your permission to be human." "We never did." The aliens looked confused. The Valoran spoke again. "You are refusing council membership?" "I'm saying that we'll be human whether you approve of it or not," Bay replied. "We'll save people who need saving whether you think it's logical or not. We'll risk our lives for strangers whether you understand it or not." Ambassador Wu Sung Cho, the fleet's senior diplomat, leaned forward. "Admiral, perhaps we should consider their offer." "Should we?" Bay asked. "These same beings abandoned over 2 million people to die. They ran away when things got difficult. They calculated that it wasn't worth the risk to save innocent lives." The Natari swirled angrily. "We made the logical decision based on available data." "You made the coward's decision," said Commander Park. "And now you want to reward us for doing what you should have done." Dr. Lim had been quiet, but now she spoke. "What fascinates me is that you still don't understand why we did it. You're offering us membership because we succeeded, not because we tried. You still think it's about the results?" The Kronith rumbled slowly. "What else could it be about?" "It's about the choice," Dr. Kim said. "When we saw people in danger, we had a choice. Help them or abandon them. The odds didn't matter. The logic didn't matter. People needed help, so we helped them." The Valoran's lights flashed rapidly. "This is difficult for us to process, and your species makes decisions based on emotional imperatives rather than logical analysis." "Sometimes the heart is smarter than the brain," Captain Lee said. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. The aliens asked many questions about human psychology, human decision-making, human values. They seemed to be trying to understand something that was completely foreign to them. Finally, Admiral Bay stood up. "This meeting is over. We have work to do." "What work?" the Valoran asked. "There are still people on the planet who need help. Damaged cities that need to be rebuilt. Families that need to be reunited. That's more important than talking about what we did." As the aliens prepared to leave, the Kronith elder spoke one more time. "Admiral, we have lived for millions of years. We have seen thousands of species rise and fall, but we have never seen anything like what your people did here." "Then you've been looking at the wrong things," Bay replied. After the aliens left, the human command staff remained in the conference room. Through the windows, they could see the council fleets in orbit, still studying the planet with their sensors. "Do you think we should have accepted their offer?" Ambassador Cho asked. "Maybe someday," Admiral Bay said, "when they understand that membership isn't something they can give us or take away. When they realize that being human isn't about what others think of us, but about what we choose to do." Dr. Kim was looking at her datapad, studying reports from the planet's surface. "The monuments are almost finished. The colonists have built 37 memorial markers, one for each person who died in the core mission." "What do they say?" Captain Lee asked. Dr. Kim read from her pad. "When the universe demanded sacrifice, humans gave themselves. When logic demanded retreat, humans advanced. When hope died, humans lit the darkness with their lives." Admiral Bay nodded. "That sounds about right." A week later, the human fleet prepared to leave the saved planet. Most of the colonists were staying to rebuild their world. The underground cities would be larger and stronger than before. The planet's core would be stable for millions of years, protected by the 7 quantum stabilizers. Before departing, Admiral Bay received one final message from the council fleets. The Valoran's voice sounded different, less certain than before. "Admiral, we want you to know that we have been reconsidering our understanding of logic and efficiency. What your species accomplished here will be studied for generations." "Study it all you want," Bay replied. "But if you really want to understand it, try helping someone who needs it. Not because the odds are good, but because it's the right thing to do." As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace carrying news of their victory back to Earth, the council fleets remained behind. They continued to study the planet with their sensors, trying to understand how humans had done the impossible. But the real answer was not in their computers or their calculations. It was in the 37 memorial markers on the planet's surface, and in the 7 quantum stabilizers humming quietly in the planet's core, and in the 2,300,000 people who were alive because someone had cared enough to try. The universe was a big, dangerous place. It was full of species that calculated odds and made logical decisions and protected themselves above all else. But it also had humans in it, And humans, as the galaxy was learning, were something very different. They were the species that walked into fire when others walked away. They were the ones who chose hope over logic, courage over safety, sacrifice over self-preservation. They were the ones who lit candles in the darkness and refused to let them go out. The council had walked away from them, but humans had walked into the flames and they had saved everyone.